need to talk about Curtis Yarvin. I've been putting this podcast off for a while because I don't want to talk about Curtis Yarvin. He's a weird little guy who seems to have allegedly swiped a lot of his ideas from another person who we will talk about. But on Monday, I think it was the New Yorker that I subscribed to, they put out a big article on him. I printed it out because I'm 57. I'm Gen X. I printed it because I need paper so I can highlight it and make notes on it. So I printed it. It was 40 pages long. And so that happened on Monday. And then on Tuesday, I saw Tim Miller of the Bulwark with Will Sommer, who is now at the Bulwark. I love Will Sommer. I am so happy that the Bulwark has Will Sommer. It almost makes up for the grief that I feel that Mark Caputo went on to Politico. I love Mark Caputo as well. But I'm super happy that they got Will Sommer. So Tim Miller and Will Sommer put out like a 15-minute long video on Tuesday, I think it was, yesterday. Today is Wednesday, June 4th, talking about Curtis Yarvin and talking about this article. Anyway, I'm Hawk. Welcome back to another Hawk podcast. If you like this video, please click like, leave a comment. Please subscribe to my page. And if you would like to support what my brother and I are doing, if you would like to support that financially, please subscribe to one of our tiers that we have. But I didn't want to talk about Curtis Yarvin, but I saw this article came out. Then I saw the Tim Miller, Will Sommer thing on the Bulwark. And so I was like, God damn it. Okay. Because I had a whole stack of Curtis Yarvin stuff that's been sitting on my desk for a couple of months. I did not want to talk about Curtis Yarvin, but apparently this week we're going to talk about Curtis Yarvin because, he's popping up again. And so Curtis Yarvin, he's a couple years younger than me. He's like 52, 53, something like that. He lives right across the Richmond Bridge from me over in Berkeley. I'm in Marin County. But this guy, he's extremely intelligent. He got into college at a very young age, graduated at a very young age, a few years younger than everybody else in his class. But, he also used to go to class every day wearing a bicycle helmet. And so people made fun of him for wearing a bicycle helmet, and they called him Helmet Head. We'll get to that in a few moments as well. Anyway, he is very intelligent. He fashions himself as kind of a philosopher, a very high-minded thinker, who has some seriously fucked up ideas on how to govern the United States of America, or not govern the United States of America, as the case may be. Doesn't believe in voting, doesn't believe in democracy, which, okay, all of that's fine. But over the last several years, 10, 15 years, he has become a favorite of the kind of Silicon Valley billionaire class. Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen. He's friends with Vice President JD Vance, who has cited him often, and who has socialized with him recently. And, Peter Thiel invested in one of his companies back in the day. Peter Thiel, a billionaire, Silicon Valley billionaire guy, started PayPal, very early investor in Facebook. Elon Musk likes this guy as well and his ideas. And, he thinks that the small d democratic experiment in the United States has failed. And we need to replace it with a cross between a tech CEO and a king. And he has multiple inroads into the Donald Trump administration. Again, not the least of which is the Vice President of the United States of America, JD Vance, who apparently puts down his obsession with women of childbearing age who are not yet currently pregnant or who have too many cats when he is focusing his attention on the intellectual stylings of Curtis Yarvin. Curtis Guy Marvin, also known by his pen name, Mencius Moldbug. I mean, he used to post blog posts under the name Mencius Moldbug which I was like, Mencius Moldbug. I mean, how fucking pretentious can you get? So I renamed him Mendacious Mudbutt. Mencius Moldbug, Mendacious Mudbutt. Let's go with Mendacious Mudbutt. So we're going to talk about a little bit about his background, a little bit about his, political philosophies. We're going to talk about his view of American society, American democracy. We're going to talk about his theories and feelings on race. Spoiler alert. What the fuck? And then we're going to go through parts of that article that was in the New Yorker that was published this past Monday, June 2nd. So let's dive in. I'm going to skip around a little bit and just throw in some random things here in the beginning, and then it'll get more focused here in a few minutes. In his blog, Unqualified Reservations, which he wrote from 2007 to 2014, and in his later newsletter, Gray Mirror, which he started in 2020, he argues that American democracy is a failed experiment that should be replaced by an accountable monarchy similar to the governance structure of corporations. He has defended the institution of slavery and has suggested that certain races may be more naturally inclined towards servitude than others. He has claimed that whites have higher IQs than black people, but does not consider himself to be a white nationalist. He is a critic of the U.S. civil rights programs and has called the civil rights movement a black rage industry. Political strategist Steve Bannon has read and admired his work, and U.S. Vice President JD Vance has cited Yarvin as an influence himself. In January 2025, Mr. Yarvin attended a Trump inaugural gala in Washington. Politico reported that he was an informal guest of honor due to his outsized influence over the Trumpian right. What the fuck? Okay, here we go. Neo-reactionary blogging. I am a neo-reactionist and I blog. Yarvin's reading of Thomas Carlyle convinced him that libertarianism was a doomed project without the inclusion of authoritarianism. And Hans-Hermann Hoppe, his name's going to come back up because according to people who knew Mr. Yarvin back in the day, Hans-Hermann Hoppe is where Curtis Yarvin swiped most of his ideas. Hans-Hermann Hoppe's 2001 book, Democracy, the God That Failed, marked Yarvin's first break with democracy. I'm struggling right now. Realizing that I am 9 minutes and 54 seconds into a podcast episode that's probably going to last between 50 and 60 minutes. I'm struggling right now with the number of times over the next 40 or 50 minutes I'm going to have to say the word Yarvin. In the 2000s, the failures of U.S.-led nation building in Iraq and Afghanistan strengthened Yarvin's anti-democratic views. The federal response to the 2008 financial crisis strengthened his libertarian convictions. You know, libertarians are like fucking cats. They think that they exist in a manner which is completely independent of and not relying on anything or anyone around them, when in reality they are 100% dependent on every single person in their immediate vicinity and beyond. And Barack Obama's election as U.S. president later that year reinforced his belief that history inevitably progresses towards left-leaning societies. Gosh, I wonder why that might be, because people on the left have empathy. That's it. That's really the only difference. People on the left have empathy for people other than themselves. People who might have only progressed to a certain lower station in life or have faced struggles that other people have not faced and should be cut some fucking slack. There we go. In 2007, Yarvin began the blog Unqualified Reservations to promote his political vision in an early blog post. Okay, so this is 2007. So this is 17, 18 years ago. He adapted a phrase from the movie The Matrix, repurposing red pill to mean a shattering of progressive illusions. All right, so you remember that scene early on in The Matrix where Morpheus has Neo, the two of them are hanging out, and Morpheus sticks out both hands, and he's like, in one hand, there's the red pill, in one hand, there's the blue pill. If you take the blue pill, you go back to sleep and you go back into the Matrix and you just live your level, man. But if you take the red pill, then you wake up and you discover what's real outside of the Matrix. And that phrase, red pill, has evolved over the years. And I feel confident in saying that on June 4th of 2025 at 8:35 p.m. West Coast time, I believe today is a Wednesday, at this point in time, I feel strongly confident that if someone describes themselves as being red-pilled, that person's just a fucking dick. They have no empathy for other people because they have woken up, not to be confused with woke. But every single person I've encountered on the internet at this point in time who describes themselves as being red-pilled is just a complete fucking asshole. If you're a dude and you're red-pilled, you're an incel, pretty much. Or you're married to a woman who is saving every fucking dime she can, everywhere she can hide it, until she has enough money to get away from you. If you're a woman and you describe yourself as red-pilled, I just don't even have words. I don't even have words, and I can't help you. Because I saw a woman do a TikTok the other day that was like, why do conservative women make TikToks? Why do they speak in public? Why do they have bank accounts? Why do they have cell phones? Why do they have credit cards? Why do women who claim to be red-pilled have all of these things that progressives and liberals fought for them to have, but then they denigrate progressives and liberals and feminism? Yeah. In 2020, Yarvin began blogging his views under the page name Gray Mirror. I'm not sure if he was still using, going by the nom de plume of Mendacious Mudbutt at that point. Whatever. Who gives a shit about the rest of that? So he has received some criticism as well. According to scholar Joshua Tate, mendacious mudbutt imagines a radical libertarian utopia with maximum freedom in all things except politics. He has favored same-sex marriage, freedom of religion, and private use of drugs, and has written against race or gender-based discriminatory laws, although, according to Tate, quote, he self-consciously proposed private welfare and prison reforms that resembled slavery. Tate describes Yarvin's writings as contradictory, saying he advocates hierarchy, yet deeply resents cultural elites. His political vision is futuristic and libertarian, yet expressed in the language of monarchy and reaction. He is irreligious and socially liberal on many issues, but angrily anti-progressive. He presents himself as a thinker, searching for truth, but admits to lying to his readers, saturating his arguments with jokes and irony. These tensions indicate broader fissures among the online right. It's like, we all fucking know that guy, man. We all fucking know that guy. Just suffering from absolutely crippling insecurity when he's alone. But yet has put out some edgelord bullshit out on the internet and has gotten some modicum of recognition, following, notoriety, whatever you want to call it, and now thinks he's the smartest fucking guy in the room. And wows people and dazzles people with his contrarian, ooh, that is sassy kind of line of thinking. I mean, Curtis Yarvin is the guy you don't want to get fucking stuck next to when you're at a party and your friends haven't fucking shown up yet because they don't understand public transportation. You're living in a city and it's like they haven't figured out how to get to the fucking neighborhood where the party is. You got there early because you have ADHD and you don't know how to do anything other than show up early. So you get there early because you don't want to be late and have your friends be there without you. Your friends don't give a shit. They're running late. They're like, where's the bus? Is it a train? Are we taking a bus? What? And so you get to the party early and this fucking dickhead is standing next to the fucking drink table. And you're like, oh, god damn, this fucking guy, Jesus Christ on a pogo stick. And you're just like, going, yeah, And he's like, so anyway, we need a monarch that is like a CEO of a corporation. And we need to divide up the states into these little areas that are these sovereign areas, and each one of these sovereign areas has its own little monarch CEO, and you don't get to vote, and what you think politically doesn't matter. But it's like, who cares, man? Because it's a benevolent CEO monarch, and if you don't like that one, you just move to a different one of these little sovereign regions that has a different CEO who's a monarch, who's also benevolent, but it's also a white guy, because it's always a white guy. I mean, come on, because white guys are smarter than black people. I mean, come on. And we can't do it with a woman. I mean, what? And you're just like, I just, yeah, no, I get it, man. I get it. You're just like, I just wanted to get a vodka tonic, man. You're like, where the fuck are my friends, man? And he just keeps going. And you're like, what the fuck is even happening? And that's Curtis Yarvin. But amazingly, billionaires in fucking Silicon Valley are like, oh yeah, no, yeah, dude, I'm totally on board. Can I invest in your business? And now, over the last several years, all of those Silicon Valley billionaires, like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, a bunch of others, and that whole tech class have like gotten red pilled and are now MAGA. And they're all like informal advisors to Donald Trump. They're all friends with JD Vance, whose first real job out of college was working for Peter Thiel. Yeah, of the PayPal mafia. And so it's like somehow this fucking dipstick winds up being vice president of the United States. He's friends with all of these. He's friends with all of these guys, except for Peter Thiel. We'll circle back on him. We'll put a pin in Peter Thiel and circle back. He's friends with all of these other incredibly powerful, wealthy, white men, largely, in Silicon Valley, who, when they were in middle school and high school, didn't know how to talk to girls and never got laid. And that damaged all of them profoundly, such that when they became millionaires, they're like, well, I should be allowed to run the entire country, because I've now proven how smart and how brilliant and what a genius that I am, because now I'm a billionaire. I had a good idea 20 years ago, and now I'm a billionaire. So that qualifies me to run the entirety of the United States of America without anybody, without any of these pesky checks and balances and all of that shit. And Curtis Yarvin comes along and is like, yes, you should. Yes, you should. I think it was in something like 2009, Peter Thiel wrote an essay in which he said the following. Because it's like he's a tech CEO. He's running multiple companies. He's an incredibly wealthy billionaire. Peter Thiel was not concerned with being able to talk to girls in middle school and high school, because Peter Thiel is gay. Gawker outed him for being gay several years ago, so he spent several $1 million suing them out of existence because he was mad that they outed him as being gay. Anyway, Peter Thiel also does not like democracy or voting, especially when the people who are voting are women. He wrote in 2009, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. Since 1920, the vast increase in welfare beneficiaries and the extension of the franchise to women, two constituencies that are notoriously tough for libertarians, have rendered the notion of capitalist democracy an oxymoron." So the funny thing is that when that essay, because it's like, if you're a CEO and a billionaire and you're running multiple companies, you should be like, oh, I should write an essay so that everybody can know what I think, because I'm an extremely important person. And I just know that everybody out there, all of the common folk in San Francisco, where Peter Thiel lives, all of the common folk in the Mission who are getting things like burritos and taquitos, all of the common folk are desperate to know what I, Peter Thiel, CEO of essentially a credit payment company, all of these common folk are desperate to know what I think about, should women have the right to vote. So I'm going to write an essay. I am going to write an essay. Here is my essay. Here's my essay. Here's my essay. Since 1920, the vast increase in welfare beneficiaries and the extension of the franchise voting to women, two constituencies that are notoriously tough for libertarians, have rendered the notion of capitalist democracy into an oxymoron. So when he put that essay out, he had to put out a cleanup essay, because he got a lot of backlash for that first essay, where he said everything went off the fucking rails when we gave women the right to vote. So he had to put out a cleanup essay, and that cleanup essay was like, I'm sorry, I misspoke in my last essay. I don't believe that anybody should have the right to vote. That was his cleanup essay. Yeah. He starts off with, everything got fucked up when we gave women the right to vote. He got a whole ton of backlash. And he's like, I'm sorry, let me clean that up. I don't think that anybody should be allowed to vote. Yeah. Peter Thiel donated something like $15 or $20 million a couple of years ago to JD Vance's Senate campaign in the state of Ohio, which is my home state. That's where I was born. That's where I grew up. That's where I went to college. That's where I went to law school. And then I got the fuck out and moved to San Francisco like a normal person. Because when I was growing up in Ohio, Ohio was a blue state in the 70s and into the 80s. By the time I got into what was finishing college, got into law school into the 90s, it's getting a little purple. And then I left Ohio for good at the end of 2001, beginning of 2002. And over the last 23 years, Ohio has become Alabama. Yeah. Slightly less inbreeding, I think, just because they're, cities and shit. But whatever. Anyway, so let's talk about Mr. Yarvin's. Well, okay. People say he's alt-right. He denies that. He put out an essay saying why I am not a white nationalist. And here's the thing. I've never met anyone who's not a racist who had to put out an essay called Why I'm Not a White Nationalist after years of people accusing them of being a racist. Yeah, I mean, the fucker might as well have just put out an essay titled I'm not racist, but. Oh, man. Anyway, views on race. Yarvin has alleged that whites have higher IQs than blacks for genetic reasons. He has been described as a modern-day supporter of slavery, a description that he disputes. Okay. He has claimed that some races are more suited to slavery than others. In a post that linked approvingly to Steve Saylor and Jared Taylor, well, those guys ought to form a band, Saylor and Taylor. He wrote, "It should be obvious that although I am not a white nationalist, I am not exactly allergic to that stuff." He wrote that down and put it on the internet and was like, that'll convince people that I'm not a racist. In 2009, he wrote that since U.S. civil rights programs were, quote, applied to populations with recent hunter-gatherer ancestry and no great reputation for sturdy moral fiber, the result was absolute human garbage. Jesus Christ on a pogo stick. Oh my God. He followed up his essay titled Why I'm Not a White Nationalist with an essay titled Why I Am Not an Anti-Semite. Oh. Oh. Okay. I've never had to write an essay with either one of those titles. Oh my God. What the fuck is even happening? Okay. Fucking get it together, Hawk. Jesus Christ. Okay. What are Curtis Yarvin's core political beliefs? Curtis Yarvin is best known for his rejection of liberal democracy, which he considers to be corrupt, inefficient, and fundamentally irredeemable. He advocates for replacing democratic governance with a CEO-style autocracy or neo-monarchism. I love how these fuckers just take words and put neo in front of it. Like, I mean, I think at this point, I think I could accurately describe Curtis Yarvin as a neo-dickhead, where neo-monarchism, where a single powerful executive akin to a corporate CEO or monarch rules without elections, without opposition, or without any checks and balances. Yarvin's ideal... Yarvin. I'm just going to start saying Marvin. Yarvin's not a fucking word. Marvin's a word. Marvin's ideal system concentrates power in one sovereign executive who would streamline government, eliminate bureaucratic gridlock, and make decisions based on efficiency and outcomes, not the popular will. Which circles back to who decides what is efficient, if not the people. A sovereign executive who would streamline government, eliminate bureaucratic gridlock, and make decisions based on efficiency and outcomes. Who decides what's efficient? Who decides what is a good or bad outcome? And he's like a CEO-style executive. So all of these white billionaire CEO men in Silicon Valley are like, that sounds amazing, Marvin. I'm a white CEO executive. I could do that. Mark Andreessen sitting over there with whatever the fuck that shape of a head is. He's like, I could do that. I am a white man and a CEO, and I care about efficiency and outcomes. Except when it comes to the shape of his head. Jesus. Key concepts. So Yarvin, okay, he divides a few things up in negative ways. The first is the cathedral. Marvin takes he uses the term the cathedral to describe the informal alliance of universities, media, and bureaucracies that, in his view, enforces progressive orthodoxy and suppresses dissent. Suppresses dissent. Let me go back up to that part where a sovereign executive makes decisions without elections, opposition, or checks and balances, and yet he's concerned about suppressing dissent. But he wants an executive who rules without elections, opposition, or checks and balances. Man, fuck this guy. For a high-minded intellectual, it's like, does he not see these contradictions? Okay, whatever. Patchwork sovereignty. This you guys are going to love. Marvin proposes dividing the world into autonomous, city-sized, sovereign corporations, which he conveniently shortens and abbreviates to SovCorps. See, that's short, okay? That's short for sovereign corporations. When you just say SovCorp, that saves you like 3 syllables. Which, wait, let me go back up to that's right. That's based on efficiency. That's right, efficiency. Why say 7 syllables when you can say 2? SovCorps. There we go. Each SovCorp would be governed like a business by an executive. Citizens would be customers rather than voters. I can tell you guys already right now that I'm going to split this one up into 2 parts because I'm having too much fun with this introductory shit. So this is going to be part 1 of Mendacious Mudbutt Curtis Marvin. Citizens would be customers rather than voters, able to leave their SovCorp and go to a different SovCorp, but with no democratic input or protections. And no elections, no opposition, no checks or balances. But it's efficient because instead of saying sovereign corporations, you only have to say SovCorp. See how much time you saved? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? It's like, man, this guy might really be onto something. Yarvin believes democracy incentivizes short-term thinking, creates unnecessary complexity, and leads to political gridlocks. He favors a technocratic approach where experts and technocrats advise the sovereign. Experts and technocrats like Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and of course, Donald Trump Jr. Advise the sovereign, and governance is depoliticized and focused on results. See, now here's where I would be concerned, because he's like, I want a unitary sovereign who is focused on results. But I also defend slavery and think that black people have lower IQs than white people, and some races just lend themselves more conveniently towards slavery. So who's defining the word results? Yeah. Elections and party politics are, in his view, divisive and counterproductive and should be eliminated in favor of appointments based on, wait for it, 2 more words where it's like, who defines these? They should be eliminated in favor of appointments based on, that's right, merit and capability. Yes, we have an executive branch right now that has eliminated all DEI and makes appointments based only on merit and capability. And that's how we've ended up with Marco Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., and Pete Hegseth. Yeah, merit and capability. Okay. All right. Let's do this. Let's pause for a moment. Let's shake it out. Let's shake it out. All right. Now we're going to take a deep breath on 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold it. Let it out. There you go. Now we're going to get those sit bones seated. We're going to get those chakras realigned. That's right. Let's line up those chakras. Let's open up that third eye. That's right. We are grounded. Yes, we are grounded with our sit bones. Our chakras are aligned. That third eye is open so that we don't miss anything from Pete Hegseth. Exactly. Controversies. Yarvin has been criticized for promoting human biodiversity, a euphemism for race-based intelligence theories, and for providing intellectual cover for racist and elitist worldviews, though he denies being a white nationalist. If somebody accused me of being a racist, I would not respond with, that is not true. I am not a white nationalist. I would respond with, I'm not a racist. It reminds me, and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago in a TikTok, it reminds me of a time when I was still in law school. I was working with my mom. She had her own practice, and she was representing some client who, I'm sure she was representing her for free because my mom had a big heart in some case. And this woman who was very poor and was not very educated just burst into our office one day, and she's like, I have a new case. I want to sue my neighbor for defamation. And we were like, okay, what did your neighbor say about you? And she was like, my neighbor called me a slut and a dog fucker, and I am not a slut. And we were like, and you're a racist. I am not a white nationalist. Well, nobody said anything about nationalism in that. Okay, whatever, never mind. As part of Marvin's vision is the complete reboot of the federal government. He has proposed strategies like the acronym RAGE, which here's what I want you to envision right now. RAGE stands for Retire All Government Employees. I want you to envision the level of giddiness, self-satisfaction, and internal superiority that Marvin felt when he came up with that acronym. Because, you know, he thought he just came up with the best thing that had ever been invented. RAGE, Retire All Government Employees, which would involve firing the entire federal workforce and replacing them with loyalists to the new regime. Where have you heard that before? Project 2025. Russ Vought, Chapter 2 of Project 25, which Russ Vought wrote on consolidating the power of the executive and firing everybody in the executive branch. And JD Vance, who was on that podcast, he was on a podcast with that bald guy who had a neck beard, who apparently got off by watching his wife have sex with other people while he's getting pegged. But he comes across as like, you know, an alpha male. Like, you know, you look at the guy and you're like, oh, that guy used to be in the special forces. It's like, no, he likes to watch other guys fuck his wife. But JD Vance was on that podcast when he was like, we should defy the courts if we get reelected. And, you know, in the words of that Supreme Court justice or the president, Andrew Jackson, it's like, well, the Chief Justice has made his order. Now let him enforce it. And, you know, but on that same podcast with Cuckboy, JD Vance was like, we should fire every single employee in the executive branch and replace them with our people, which he got from Russ Vought, Project 2025, who got it from Curtis Marvin. Yeah. So, okay, fire everybody and replace them with our people. All right. Social hierarchy and elitism. Marvin rejects political equality, favoring a rigid social hierarchy and elite rule, even though he hates elitists. Unless they invite him to their parties. Yeah. If the elitists invite Marvin to their parties, then Marvin loves the elitists. And if the elitists invest in his bullshit startups or whatever, then he loves the elitists. He believes order and stratification are necessary for a stable society. Where do you think black and brown people and women fit in Marvin's stratification of society, let alone the LGBTQ community or the disabled or immigrants? And that only capable individuals should govern. Again, there's another one of those words. Who defines the word capable? Who defines the word capable? Marvin uses selective historical examples to argue that monarchies and autocracies have not typically resulted in atrocities like the Holocaust. Not typically. So a few are going to slip through. Oh, that one got past me. That atrocity got by me. What the fuck, man? Suggesting that modern day society is less prone to such barbarism. He contends that the risk of absolute power is outweighed by the benefits of efficient, centralized rule. If Americans want to change their government, they're going to have to get over their dictator phobia, said Curtis Marvin. In summary, and we're going to wrap up this part 1, and then I'll do a part 2 in a couple days. There's just, I mean, we haven't even gotten to the dark Enlightenment, you know, or all this other dipshit. How he's a house. somebody described him as Peter Thiel's court jester. And we got to talk about his relationship with Peter Thiel, his relationship with Mark Andreessen, and that Semaphore article. So go look this up. There was an article in Semaphore published on April 27th. It was written by Ben Smith. It's called The Group Chats That Changed America. That's your homework assignment for episode 2 on Curtis Marvin. In summary, Marvin's core belief is that democracy is irredeemable and should be replaced by a strong technocratic autocracy led by a CEO-like figure with institutions purged of democratic influence and restructured for order, efficiency, and elite control, along with doing away with things like voting, self-expression, participating in democracy, and self-governance. God, Jesus, what do you think this dickhead does for fun on like a Sunday morning? Or like a Saturday afternoon? He lives in the Bay Area. He lives in Berkeley, okay? It's like it's a Saturday afternoon. He's got a free day. He doesn't have to do anything in the world. What do you think Curtis Marvin does for fun? Mendacious Mudbutt. What does Mendacious Mudbutt do for fun on a Saturday afternoon? I feel like he goes to a meadow and strangles bunnies, but I could be wrong on that. I hope I'm wrong on that. I mean, it's either that or giving Mark Andreessen a hand job in a fucking Walgreens parking lot, but allegedly. I'm just asking questions here, guys. I'm just asking questions about Mendacious Mudbutt. I'm just asking questions. So anyway, that wraps up part 1 on Curtis Yarvin Marvin, Mendacious Mudbutt. Good God, man. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and for some fucked up reason would like to see more videos like this one, please click like, leave a comment, even if you spell it wrong and you don't have a complete handle on the differences between there, and there, and two, and two, then, and than. I mean, my God, how can anybody keep track of this shit? I mean, my goodness. And, you know, because when you guys leave comments like that, that's how we spot you in the wild. So, you know, please subscribe to my page. It's free. It's a fucking laugh riot over here. And thanks for watching this, and I'll see you guys soon.